Greetings, my name is Bismuth, and I am here to assist anyone who may be a little overwhelmed with Red Mage on paper as Stormblood draws ever closer during maintenance. As of making this video, the full patch notes have not come out, and the preliminary notes do not contain job details other than where to start your journey as either of the new pair. Because of this, I will be using data that may be out of date, but the fundamentals have likely not changed due to how set in stone dualcast makes the job. I will start by going over your skills in the order you obtained them, with a small overview of the priorities and rotations every 10 levels before finally going over some small optimizations that could be made as I watched various videos of existing Final Fantasy XIV YouTubers fall into some trappings that those who are not used to a balance system might face. Think of them as advanced tips after catching you up to speed with the basics. If you plan to level Red Mage through Palace of the Dead, starting off at floor 1 may not be a bad idea, so you can put the pieces together over time. Over the first 10 levels of Red Mage, you are given the bare bones tools you will be using when rising through the levels. Riposte, Jolt, Cora Core, and both your long cast verse spells, the Thunder and the Arrow, are represented here, as well as dualcast being a trait from the moment you pick up your rapier, along with their signature bar which tracks black and white mana. Thanks to dualcast, every spell you cast that goes through a cast bar gives you an instant cast on your next spell. Riposte is a melee skill that requires 30 of each coloured mana to deal significant damage with, using it up in the process, but can be used regardless to do much less damage. Jolt is a 2-second cast spell that generates 3 of each mana, while the Thunder and the Arrow are 5-second cast spells that generate 11 black and white mana respectively. Cora Core allows you to close the distance with your enemy so that you can more easily make sword strikes and dish out substantial damage when your coloured manas are high. This leaves you with the simple rotation of casting Jolt for 2 seconds, instant casting whichever verse spell you have the least mana of, or simply whichever you prefer when they're even, and then repeating until you have at least 90 of each colour, using Cora Core to close the gap and make use of 3 ripostes in a row before going back to your spell rotation. The spells you gain at level 15 and 18 do not affect your single target rotation, but they do introduce 2 area of effect spells into your kit. Tether is an area of effect bind that will rarely find a use in casual content, but the possibility is always there, while Scatter is your main area of effect damage dealer, generating 11 of each mana with each double cast, as the first cast enhances the second cast's generation while proccing dual cast, letting them essentially go off simultaneously. For now, when you get 90 mana during your AoE rotation, get into melee and unleash 3 ripostes so you aren't wasting resources. Levels 26 and 30 introduce your 2 short cast verse spells, the Fire and the Stone. These spells have the same cast time as Jolt, and thus serve the same role, allowing you to get off a fast dual cast proc in preparation to cut down the cast time for your longer cast spells while generating 9 of the respective mana. Unfortunately, these spells are held back behind a proc system that requires a buff you get from casting the Thunder or the Arrow that only applies half of the time. This sets up the first level of priority in your rotation, as using the Fire or the Stone as a setup is a more potent use of a global cooldown than Jolt is. If neither is available, Jolt is still the main hardcast. From now until level 50, you'll unlock a skill every 5 levels before the onslaught of 2 levels post 50 when job quests become available. The first 2 of these are Zvachau, another melee skill that combos off of Riposte, and Displacement, which is essentially a quicker way to get back out of range after your melee combo. This doesn't change up your basic rotation, but it does make your melee combo much more potent and, more importantly, cheaper. Instead of waiting until 90 of each mana, You only need to wait for 85 before launching in with Core and going Riposte, Zvachao, Riposte, and then making use of Displacement to get back out of melee range for your regular rotation to resume. Similarly to the previous 10 levels, the skills you gain at 45 and 50 do not change up the main rotation or priority, instead streamlining it with off-global cooldown skills and your final melee skill, these being Flesh, Acceleration, and Redoublement respectively. Flesh can easily be weaved in after dual casted for Aero or the Thunder for easy damage, while Acceleration makes sure your next one of either long cast verse spells procs their respective short cast verse spell, similar to how Ammunition works for the Machinist. Redoublement, on the other hand, acts as the finisher to your melee combo, changing the final riposte you have done for the last 15 levels into the second of the 2 cheaper melee skills, leaving your required manas at 80 for your combo from now on. The next 10 levels after 50 give us 5 new skills to weave in outside our general rotation. Molinet is essentially a Cone Area of Effect version of Riposte in many ways, requiring 30 of each mana to be effective and rounding out your proper multi-target combo with a suitable melee skill. The Cure is your main survival tool, giving you a potent heal that scales off your intellect and can be cast twice in quick succession thanks to dual cast. As a bonus, the target is not limited to you, so if need be, the tank or healer might end up thanking you for a well-timed use of it. Contrast Sixt acts as an area of effect version of Flesh, but as it still does damage to the initial target, it will be a mainstay during your off-global cooldowns during single target as well as multi-target. Embolden is your main group utility, giving you a substantial boost to your magic damage while giving all your party members additional physical damage that slowly ramps down every 4 seconds. Since even your melee skills are considered magic damage while using mana to empower them, it's best to pop this when you're about the end of your combo with the most potent moves, especially at later levels. Finally, Manification doubles both of your manas and resets both of your mobility tools, allowing you to go in for your combo at a moment's notice on a not insubstantial cooldown, as long as you have at least 40 of each mana. I'll talk more about this later, but none of these skills actively affect your rotation. The last 5 spells, those that are gained between 62 and 70, are arguably the most substantial in how you play the class at max level compared to earlier on, not unlike the difference between level 50 Black Mage and level 60 Black Mage in Heaven's Ward. Jolt 2 replaces Jolt, granting it more potency and the ability to proc Impactful, which is not important until later on. Similarly to the Cure, the Raise is a powerful support option in groups since it can be instantly thrown out thanks to dual cast for a substantial mana cost. Use it sparingly though, as we do not have any real way in our base kit to properly regenerate mana. Impact is, in many ways, a more powerful version of Jolt 2 that generates no coloured manas, making it useful in situations where you do not want to gain either of them. However, when under the effect of Impactful from a Jolt 2 cast, you'll instead generate 4 in each type of mana, as opposed to 3 from your normal Jolt 2. While an Impactful boosted impact is of a higher priority than Jolt 2, it does not edge out the Fire or the Stone in terms of importance, and should be used in place of Jolt 2 when available. Your 2 skills at 68 and 70, the Flare and the Holy, are essentially the 4th piece of your melee combo, even if they are still ranged spells, as they can only be used after a mana using Redoublement and are functionally identical other than their affinity to one of the 2 manas. Which one you use after retreating to range is clear, however, as if you use the one that corresponds to the mana you have the least of, you get the definite proc of the Fire or the Stone respectively. This leaves us with a final rotation and priority with a 4-step melee combo after a regular setup of hard casting a shorter cast time spell and instantly casting a long cast spell. If you only came here for the basics of the rotation and a breakdown of each skill on its own, then I thank you for listening, as it's time for some more advanced musings I've had in the weeks leading up to Stormblood. Before going into your melee combo, you should probably always make use of your dual cast proc if it's up to either solidify the imbalance in your mana, or make sure of an impactful proc on top of it. Since you'll be using Kora Core outside of the global cooldown, there's not much keeping you from using it during the global cooldown from your instant cast. Manification could either be used to let you go in on a combo when you're between 40 and 50 in both manas, but it's also possible to use it to extend a combo after Uzva-Chow. If you had between 95 and 100 in each mana when starting, you can go in with your normal combo up to Uzva-Chow, activate your displacement, use your Manification, and then go in for an entirely new combo. Even use this to redirect your combo between targets if one has died by instantly resetting Kora Core. Lastly, using Jolt 2 when one of your manas is too high will only lead to the gap widening, as the lesser mana will generate at a greatly reduced pace. If the gem at the top of your bars is black or white, refrain from using it until it returns to the red and you can generate both manas in a regular fashion once more. Thank you for watching. If anything changes in the future, I'll make an addendum to this video that will be linked in the description. Liberty or death, future Red Mages. Liberty or death.